the next day is promising to be even more passionate. We start out with a panel made up of a former student of ours, and it's a pleasure for me to have Ekaitz with me, Ekaitz Zuriaga. He used to be my student in English literature a few years back, and then he went on to complete his master's degree. He's almost finished with that, and he is working now under the supervision of Maria here on a master's thesis about Harry Potter series. And today he is going to talk a little bit about some of his conclusions regarding the dark side of this saga. So it's a pleasure, Ekaitz, to have you here today, and feel free whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the Congress for giving us the chance of presenting our papers here today. It's a really big pleasure. Well, as you may deduce from the title of my presentation, and as Martin has explained, the main issue on my paper here today is to show to what extent the stereotype of monsters can be found in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter saga, and also, in a way, if she was able to break with this stereotype in the book. Regarding the contents of my presentation, I will start with a brief introduction with a contextualization of the topic. I will continue with the theoretical background, the topic about fear and monsters in general. Of course, I will continue with the analysis in order to show you if J.K. Rowling used in a way this stereotype of monsters in her book, and if she succeeded in breaking with it. And I will finish with some conclusions to end up with my presentation. Well, first of all, it would be important to say that J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter saga is full of different kind of monsters she introduced in the story. On the one hand, we have, and we will see how she introduced monsters that were or that are stereotypical monsters from literature in general. But also, on the other hand, we have monsters that were created by herself, by her imagination. Also, we have to say that many of them were taken by other cultures, like, for example, the folk culture, and she changed it in a way, these monsters, in order to make them or give them the shape she wanted to portray in the story. Also, I would like to mention the two questions I would like you to take into account today in order to see if we are able to answer them in this presentation. Both questions would be, first, if J.K. Rowling used the stereotypical monsters in her work, and on the other hand, if she, in a way, was able to break with this stereotype. Well, regarding the theoretical background, I would like to start speaking about what fear is. It would be important to say that, according to many psychologists, they say that fear is, like, in a way, a machinery we all humans have in our brain, which enables every time that we see ourselves in a dangerous situation. Also, these same researchers, they outstand that this fear comes from our ancient hominid ancestors, which were, in a way, well, they had to face up many fears, like, for example, other tribes or extreme weather conditions, and also sometimes wild animals. But indeed, also, there are these researchers who also state that fear is not always something negative. Indeed, fear and anxiety are, both characteristics are what makes us react when we see ourselves in dangerous situations and makes us react in those situations. But you will be asking now, how can we relate this fear with monsters in literature? Well, as you may see in the quotation we have in the screen, it was Shepard who stated that our fear of monsters in the night probably has its origins far back in the evolution of our primate ancestors, whose tribes were pruned by horrors whose shadows continue to elicit our monkey screams in dark theaters. So I think that this quotation is quite important due to the fact that what Shepard is saying is that not only monsters have always been something related to maybe literature or that we can find only in fictional stories, but also something that we can find in the origin of humanity, and that comes from many million years ago. Okay, so regarding the monsters or the evolution of monsters in literature, I would like to start speaking about like different kind of monsters in literature. I will focus on some of them for you to know or for you to see how has been their evolution through the years. The first one I would like to speak about are the vampires, as you can see in the screen. Regarding the vampires, the beginning of the vampires, at the beginning they were like reanimated corpses that were created to make the people be afraid of them because their only goal was to kill people, suck their blood, and in a way they were nocturnal creatures that were made or were created to make the people feel fear of them. One of the most outstanding vampires in literature, of course, is Dracula by Bram Stoker. In the case of Dracula, we can see how maybe Dracula is not the stereotypical vampire, but in a way, yeah, the main goal of this vampire is to suck the blood of people, to convince them to go or to do what he wants, but also in a way breaks with the stereotype of vampires afraid of the sunlight, because if you have read the book, you can see how Dracula is able to go out of his castle and so to leave when it is in the middle of the morning or so. But also we can see how, as I have mentioned, Dracula is also the stereotype of the vampire, because the only goal is to kill the humanity or to kill humans. Regarding nowadays vampires, for example, we can find the most or the more modern ones, which are, for example, the ones that we can find in Twilight. From my point of view, it's not like a very good portrayal of vampires in literature, because the only thing, from my point of view, the only thing that they can do is to sparkle more than to make people be afraid of them. Yeah, we can see how Stephanie Meyer in her novel gave new point of view of vampires, because they were like conscious of not killing humans. They were like these vegan vampires or so, that they only wanted to kill animals, not humans. But also, in a way, she introduces like some characters that are also the stereotypical vampires, that they want to kill humans and so. But well, as you can see, or as I have mentioned, we can see how vampires have evolved through time. The next creatures I would like to speak about are the werewolves. Are quite common in literature. Werewolves are like monsters that at the beginning in folk literature, for example, weren't a monster at all. Indeed, in folk literature, werewolves were taken as a creature that represented like the wild animals the humanity could find in their environment. For example, wolves or bears or yeah. But also, sometimes werewolves have been taken as the metaphor of the beast inside the man, in a way to portray that that beast we all have inside. We can also find in Dracula's Bram Stoker a werewolf that is like, for example, in the film of Coppola, for example, you can see how the werewolf is portrayed, like in the stereotypical way, like in the one that you have on your left side in the picture. While nowadays, again, if we take Stephanie Meyer's novel, we can find maybe not a werewolf, because she explains that it's not, they are not werewolves at all. They are like people, they can change their shape more than becoming werewolves. But also we can see how the idea of werewolves have changed through the time, and it's one of the stereotypical monsters that we can find in literature. Finally, I would like to finish, sorry, with the monster of the ghosts. Ghosts always have been used in order to explain inexplicable events in society. They were taken as something like negative, something that they were souls of dead people coming to our world again. And they were, in a way, created to make people be afraid of them. While, as we are going to see in the analysis, for example, in other cultures or in other books or in literature, ghosts have had like an evolution, like in Harry Potter, for example, in which we can see a more humanized monster that is not created to be afraid of them. We could see that maybe ghost or so, they could be seen nowadays like more metaphorical than any other thing. So, continuing with the analysis of my presentation, as I have stated at the beginning of the presentation, as being a fantasy writer, J.K. Rowling used a wide variety of monsters in her book. In a way, we can see. I would like to start to speak out like with the stereotypical monsters that we can find in the Harry Potter saga. First, she introduces stereotypical monsters such as, for example, giants, werewolves, or ghosts. In the case of the giants, if you remember or if you have read the books, it is in the 5th book when we first know about the giants, when the characters of Hagrid and Madame Maxime, they have to seek for the giants in the mountains in order to convince them, in a way, to become part of Harry's army, Dumbledore's army, or, well, the good army. But also they are portrayed as the stereotypical monster which is isolated in the mountains. They are, they can kill humans. Indeed, they enjoy killing humans. And in a way, finally, they become part of Voldemort's army. But also we can find the giant who becomes good or who becomes part of the good army. And it's, in a way, the break with that stereotype of giants being bad, which is the character of Grab, which is Hagrid's brother. Grab, in a way, is taken from his environment, the giant environment, and he becomes part in the army, and he took part in the battle at the end of the book, fighting against his sometimes. Well, it is stated that he's fighting his siblings. Also, one of the monsters that appear in this battle too are the werewolves. If you, I say again, if you have read the book, werewolves are monsters that Voldemort wants as part of his army. And one of the important characters portraying the stereotypical werewolf in literature is the character of Greyback, who is a werewolf that not only enjoys killing people and killing humans when he is transformed when it is full moon, but also he likes killing people when he is a human. Yes, so here we can see how he's portrayed as the stereotypical werewolf which enjoys killing people only because of being part monster or part beast in a way. On the other hand, of course, we have the character of Remus Lupin, who is one of the characters who tries to break with this stereotype from the very beginning when he tries to hide his beast part in the book. He tries to not become part of this werewolf world, and also he's afraid of what people can say about him. But it is, as you may remember, his wife Tonks who convinced him that being a werewolf is not something really bad. And we can see how Lupin breaks with this stereotype of werewolves being always bad, and he becomes like a reference in order to see how werewolves have changed in literature. And finally, as I have mentioned in the part of ghosts, the ghosts in Harry Potter can be seen as a humanized character. It's not, they are not characters created to make people feel fear. Indeed, the ghosts are like a very important part of Hogwarts because they were inhabitants of this castle, and many students have good relationship with them, like for example Harry with Nick. And also, indeed, they are taken as wise characters in which you can rely on, in which you can look for them in order to ask for help. So we can see how they are given a new shape, a new point of view. And also related to ghosts, we can find, for example, the character of Pips. Maybe you remember this fool that is always trying to bother the students, making pranks and jokes to them. Pips indeed is a poltergeist, which is like in a way, it's like a paranormal activity related to ghosts. And here, J.K. Rowling took the idea of poltergeists, and he or she gives him the shape of, she gives him a human shape and a character that is not created to be afraid of, but to enjoy with him. But the main point of my presentation regarding monsters would be the Dementors, which, as you may know or as you may remember, Dementors are creatures invented by J.K. Rowling. They were, or they are, the monsters that we can find in the prison of Azkaban. They are, or they were created in order to control the prisoners of this prison, and in a way, we can see Dementors as dehumanized monsters. She gives them like a human shape, but they are not humans. They are made, or they are created in order to make the people feel sad, because the main purpose of Dementors is to suck the happiness from humans. And in a way, we can see how this way of being is the stereotypical use of a monster to be afraid of him or of them, when you see them, to try to escape from them. So here we can see how J.K. Rowling created a monster in order to make the people feel or be afraid of them. Indeed, it is Dumbledore in the third book who states that it is not in nature of a Dementor to understand pleading or excuses. We can see how here J.K. Rowling gave Dementors, like, as I have mentioned, a dehumanized form, because even if they are like humans, they don't feel any kind of feelings. So we can see how they are the stereotypical monster. Also, it would be important to say that regarding the stereotypical use of monsters in Dementors, we can see how here J.K. Rowling didn't make any monster or any Dementor become good. Here we can see how none of the Dementors that appear in the book becomes part of Harry's army at the end of the book. So here we can see how she gives the Dementors like the shape of stereotypical monster. And also, it would be important that not only Dementors are introduced in the book in order to introduce a monster, but also because it was J.K. Rowling in an interview who stated that Dementors were the allegory of the depression she lived when she was an adult, when she was living in Portugal. They are described as what she felt when she was living the depression. So in a way, it was a creation she did in order to give the shape of fear in the book. So as some conclusions, I would like to say that even if J.K. Rowling used a huge variety of stereotypical monsters in her work, also she gave them a new point of view, and also she succeeded in breaking with the stereotype of the use of some monsters in the book, with the examples that we have seen, for example, with the werewolves, the giants, the ghosts. But also she succeeded in creating a monster that was, or that would follow the use of stereotypical monsters in literature with the Dementors. So in a way, as a general conclusion, we could say that she succeeded in both issues, breaking with the stereotype and creating a new one by creating a monster with her imagination. So, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Ekaits, for this presentation of the figures of different sorts of monsters, some humanized and some other dehumanized, totally devoid of human characteristics. I'm sure that you have a lot of questions for Ekaits, but if you don't mind, maybe you could leave them for later, so that we first have the 3 presentations of this panel, and then we have a general debate in which you can interact with the speakers. So, thank you very much. Our next speaker here